Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and you can tell both by the thumbnail you just clicked on and by the presence of the Series 2 Circus Ringmaster that we're back to Fairground Fridays rather than a continuation of the train build I started this week, but we'll finish that on Monday. So on to today's build. Now, not all rides at the fairground are white knuckle affairs where you have to hang on with both hands for dear life. And most of the rides that I've produced so far, I think, definitely fall into that category, ones that I probably wouldn't want to go on myself. So, for a bit of variety, as that is the name of the game, I thought I'd do a ride for the kiddies who will be going to the fairground, one that doesn't have a height restriction thing next to it, that also scared adults can attend as well and go around those who aren't in the mood for something a bit more adrenaline fueled. So what I thought I would do is create a variation on a ride that I already had as part of the Jokerland set 76035. Now, that set's got lots of different parts, which I was fortunate enough to buy second-hand in quite good condition. And I've already done something with the Poison Ivy vertical drop ride, and I made my Venus Fly drop. I'm not going to do anything with that sort of tightrope part with the motorbike on it. And I may get round to doing something with the kind of big Joker clown head at some point. But the one that was most obviously kind of a kiddie ride in disguise was the Deadly Duckies ride. Now, there are a few problems with that as it currently stands. Firstly, it's called Deadly Duckies, and well, that just won't do for the kiddies and the young parents. Also, it's kind of above like loads of rocks and ice and even shark infested waters, which I can't remember as to why that would exactly be in the context it was in, but it definitely won't be right for the context that I want to put it in the middle of my fairground. So I need to get rid of all of those bits. And then also it was hand powered, of course, with a handle on the back that just made you turn it. And if it's going to be in my fairground, then it really will have to be motorized. So I've got the ducky part of that ride here, which is very fun and needs very few changes really. But what I'm going to have to do is basically replace everything that was on the back with something a lot more appropriate. So so the list of things that I'm going to need to add are power functions, basically, so it fits in with all the rest of my fairground and can share motors and all the rest of it when I get to integrating it all together. One that I've done already, which is adding more yellow components to the ducks. The originals had lots of bracket pieces in light bluish grey and so on, and I've just replaced all of those parts for their direct equivalents in yellow, which I think makes it look a bit more in keeping. And then the main bit is really a new backdrop to replace all of those rocks, ice and shark infested waters that's a lot more kiddie orientated and a lot more fun. And then I need to add some kids to my ride. So I think I can do the first bit first, or rather the last bit first, and add some children to my ducks. So I'm just going to add one on the back there. It's quite hard to get them in this sort of confined space. Here's another young lady. I'll put her in that one. Maybe she's facing back because you can pretty much decide your orientation in these things. And then I'll have a boy in the third one. And I really like his sort of cowlick hair on the front there. I think that's from Mr. Incredible. And he's got a ninja shirt on, of course. And I've put some jumper plates in this one just so I can have one of the figures actually sort of balanced in the middle of their car. So it'll be like that. So yeah, so these three can be having great fun going round and round on this set of Duckies. So we'll have to think of another name of it that's not deadly. And the other thing I've noticed actually just by putting these minifigures in this ride is they become a little bit top heavy and they don't kind of right themselves as quickly as you might want. So what I thought I would do is just add a orange 2x2 round plate on the underneath and then one of these shoe pieces, why not, in trans orange to kind of represent its feet, I suppose, the little ducky. And I can put one of those on each of these. And then hopefully that'll just add a little bit of weight and change that sort of balancing point. So when these turn, they turn a little bit more quickly. I'm not sure if that's working much or not, but I think it is a little bit improved, so that's good. But it also kind of adds to the look, so I'm pretty happy with that anyway. Right, so the first stage for making this motorized is to focus on my recessed underground area. As many of you will know by heart now, I have the table layer, then 3 brick height, and then the ground layer, which is level with the rest of my city, and that gives me a nice cavity to put all of my wires and all of my motors. So that's the bit that I'm going to do next. And here is that setup with the bright green plate representing the table layer, which will ultimately be a base plate, and these 3 high brick columns kind of supporting what will be the ground level itself. And in that cavity, we've got a medium power functions motor powering this axle with 2 of those Technic pieces there, or whatever they're called, containing a worm gear. And that is going to turn quite quickly with our motor. And that is going to have its motion slowed down a great deal because it's going to power a horizontal gear which will bring that motion much more slowly up through the ground level to the surface where we can use it to power our ride. So this is an incredibly simple setup. I've just got the gear with a spacer kind of balancing in a Technic plate, and you can see the spacing's just right for those 2 to interlock. So if I add another spacer brick there and then a Technic plate there to let the axle through, but this one's in bright green, which is quite important because I want it to tie in with all the rest of my ground level. I can then add a few more struts and then complete what will be the level that meshes with everything else in my fairground and hides all of that bad stuff. So here we go. And this is why I've got as many different types of these plates as I can, just to sort of enable me to kind of put a patchwork quilt of these sort of things together. And that is now a very firm surface for me to build the ride on. And obviously this is the only surface that you'll see in due course. And then if we just put on a beveled gear on here so you can see what's going on when I use the motor, we'll have a much slowed down turning motion, with a bit of a hop there, in it to power our ride. I'm going to have to sort that out, whatever's causing that. And that seems to me to be about the right speed for this to be going around if it's a real kiddie ride, just a real sort of gentle turn. So yeah, I think that's really good. So once I've sorted out that little weird hop thing that was going on, which is probably due to something spoiling on the inside, I think we can get on with the main part, which will be the kind of superstructure to replace all of those rocks, ice and shark-infested waters. Now, when I started off trying to make a replacement backdrop for this, I was kind of struggling for inspiration. I mean, what would be the backdrop to loads of little ducks spinning around in a circle? Could do a sort of farmyard scene or something like that. But yeah, it just wasn't really coming together. And then I looked further at the Jokerland set that it came from, set 76035 that we looked at earlier. And it reminded me that the large kind of clown head in that, or Joker head, depending on how you look at it, had another function that I could incorporate here. And it was a pair of eyes that are built into the head with a kind of mechanism that you can turn using a handle on the back. And they kind of go round and round in kind of a spooky way. So I could kind of steal the idea of that mechanism and put it inside another more sort of kid-friendly character, and then the eyes could kind of follow the people on the ride around and around, and I thought that might add to its appeal. So really I need to just decide on what sort of creature I should do, and well, it seems obvious really. I should do another baby duck or duck chick or duckling or whatever you want to call it, with a really fun expression that would bring all of the young kids to the ride and really make them want to have a go and start pestering their parents. So that's what I'm going to do. So starting with the mechanism itself, this is basically a replica of what is on the inside of that clown head, and it's really quite simple. Basically, you've got an axle turning here, and if I turn that middle one clockwise, you'll see that the ones adjacent to it with the tan-coloured Technic pins in it turn anti-clockwise, and then the ones on the outside both turn clockwise as well. And it's important that these are the 3 long ones with that stud actually available on the end there, which does make them a little bit too long, but that doesn't matter because I can cover up the excess length there with those washer pieces. But they are so they can take these eye tiles. So if I try and align these so they're both facing the same direction, although having a cross-eyed duck that looked a bit zany might be really good fun as well, actually. I don't know. We'll have to try both, won't we? But then when I turn this, you'll see that the eyes go around. And given that the ride is going to be powered by the same axle, they'll be going at the same speed and in the same direction. And I think that's a really good, interesting effect. Though it might be a bit disconcerting if you're the child that's being watched by the ginormous duck. I do not know, but we will see. So I really want this to have a very fun expression, so it's very kid-friendly, like I said. So I'm going to have a beak, which I just thought I'd do very simply using a plate here. And I like to use that in orange, or the piece that I used as a holding position when I was designing it before I had the orange one was actually red, and I kind of prefer that actually. Kind of pops a little bit more and is a bit more of a contrast to the little ducks here. So I'll probably use the red one, I think. So that's its nose, well, not really nose, kind of mouth, I suppose, beak. It's kind of a nose and a mouth, really. That'll go there. And I thought to give it a really sort of quizzical and fun expression, I'll give it some eyebrows. And how I'm going to do that is by adding these modified plates with a kind of rail on the end, just over each of the eyes. And I'm going to have them kind of looking a bit like the Marx Brothers, if you know who they are, by having them slightly at different heights. So it's kind of a quizzical expression, and he kind of looks a bit surprised. So that might be a bit hard to visualize at the moment, but when I build more of this head around this construct, fill in the gap between the eyes and so on, it should look a bit more like a duckling and a bit more fun as well. So what I need to do is add this setup to there. So that's the middle of his face. And then here is the rest of the top of his head. So if I can kind of sandwich all this up without breaking it too much. Let's see, has that worked? I think it has. There is the top of his head. So he looks a bit like Tweety Pie or something like that, but I assure you he is a duckling. And then we've still got that really good fun turning effect of the eyes. Yeah, so looking good. Right, so I'm going to continue the build of this down. So he's got a bit of a body as well. Right, so all cartoon sort of characters have oversized heads, so I've not got too much of a problem with that. But I do need to start bringing it in a bit at the bottom. So I'm going to use some of these curved inverted bricks to bring it in like that. So that can be the bottom of his head. And then I can put on the bill of his beak there. So what do we think, red or orange? See, orange kind of looks good and better on its own, but when it's sort of blending in with all of these, given that these are going to be basically spinning around that axle in his head, you kind of lose it, I think. So I think I'm going to go with red as my first suggestion anyway. And then I need to do the body. So I'm just going to make this sort of comically small in a way, make these his little wings, very small indeed, because he is just a duckling after all. And then I'm going to add some more modified bricks here. And for the back, which has got all of the equipment on, I'm going to actually add another modified brick, but with a kind of lever to turn it on and off, and all the gauges that are showing how it's running smoothly or not, depending on what condition it's kept in. And then I've built these two Technic bricks into the build, just so I can give it a bit of kind of strength, I suppose, when I put on this whole setup, which I'm having trouble getting on because the spacing has to be just right. There we go. So that gives it a lot of strength when we've got the motion all going through here, and I can put the second part of the beveled gear on there, so when this one is turning, it will be interlocking with this one and turning everything that we've done so far. Cool. So there's his body, and then I just need to kind of add some feet. So for that, I've kind of made black bit, followed by an orange bit at the very bottom. And onto that, I'm kind of going to add some toes because he needs to connect onto the ground level beneath him, but that's offset by half a stud. So what I'm going to have to do is use a load of these jumper plates just to offset his feet by half a stud. And I think that gives him a slightly firmer base. And I had loads of these in orange. It's not a very useful colour usually, so that's not too bad either. So there we go. There is our wonderful little character of a chick. Now you might be thinking, why has he got these studs on the front? And he wouldn't need to have them, I suppose, but he just looked a little bit naked, I thought. So I wanted to add something else, and I could have added clothes, but instead I decided to add... That won't tell you what it is, but you might be able to guess it. And here's the rest of it, just held together with those shoe pieces. It's an egg. So he's a very newborn duck chick who's just broken out of his egg, and he's just kicking it to one side because his toes are actually out of this egg. It's a very 2D egg after all. Doesn't really encapsulate him at all. But most of this ride is going to be viewed from the front, where you can see the beautiful character, and the back's got all the workings on it after all. So yeah, there is my wonderful duckling, who is, well, we should give him a name really. I can't think of one. Maybe you should suggest one in the comments section. But we've got a wonderful duckling who's going to be powering these. And I just need to link all of the three constituent parts together. Well, clearly I've had to move the camera back to accommodate all of what we're going to create now by combining all of this together. And I really do think he's quite fun with his wonderful shell there. Excellent, you could say. Anyway, bad jokes aside, I'm just going to pull this off here because it needs to all be sort of threaded through in the right order. So it needs to go kind of like that. And then this can link with the ground. So you see why I needed to have that exact spacing now for it all to work. So that should work there. Let's just do a quick test with the eyes. There they go. Very spookily around. Ooh, it's watching you. So there is that. Just move this to this side. And then the real pièce de résistance, adding the actual cars onto there. Yeah, that bit was quite easy, wasn't it? And now it does obscure him quite a great deal, and his wonderful expression is lost to an extent, but I still think it works really well. And it's clearly bright yellow and easy to see from a distance, and you won't see any of this, of course. So yeah, I think it works. I like it. But let's give it its test run. Should I hold it up? There we go. Oh, it looks like the eyes are watching the boy. Maybe I should give him an ice cream or something like that, and then it looks like the duck wants his ice cream. Maybe that's why he's got a very quizzical facial expression on, is because he's, why is that duck watching me? It looks like it wants to eat me. Anyway, that works very easily. I mean, the mechanism on this one is quite simple, the main mechanism, so it's no surprise that it works smoothly. We've just got this coming up from 90 degrees that we did earlier, turned another 90 degrees so it goes laterally. And it is a little ugly from the back, I must admit, compared with some of my rides, which is completely concealed. And I did consider doing this whole mechanism actually inside the duckling, but then I figured the duckling would end up being far too big. Even though I could get it sort of in a little bit more, it'd be a massive duckling by the end of things. So I thought, nah, you know, they do have some workings visible on all of these rides, so why not show them here? In fact, you can barely see them unless you look right around the corner on this thing anyway. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. Now I could have it going that way, or I could have it going that way. It seems to sort of turn a little less well. I must say they're all leaning forward a bit too far there, so I think I will have it this way. Yep, that looks good. So I just need to add a couple of people who will be running the ride. And the first one of those, I just want to add my usual sort of carny. And for all of my carnies, I'm adding kind of somebody with one of these stripy t-shirts, just because I've got far too many of them, all these crooks. This one's called Daisy Kaboom, I think, because of her bomb. She would have been running that big bomb factory that Lego never made as a set. And she's got these sort of dip-dyed hair and all the rest of it, and sort of studded belt and collar. So I quite like her. She looks rough enough to be working for the carnival, and she'll be the one probably in control of the levers on the back. And then I thought this ride, because it's orientated towards children, should also have kind of a mascot who would help with the running of it, but would also be a carny, but basically a carny in a suit. And this would be a carny in a chicken suit. rather than use the chicken suit guy, I thought I'd use the chicken skater pod minifigure, and that's a set 853958, which was the Easter sort of promotion around 2019, I think. And one really cool thing in that set was the little skateboarding rabbit. I quite liked him. Anyway, I got that as part of an order I made at that time. But even though it's got these sort of mini legs on it, I did think I'd put an adult's head in it, so he could just be a very short adult that got the very unenviable job of being in this suit. And because he's very unhappy with his job, I thought that face was really, really appropriate. And I gave him sort of stubble and so on, just so it was very clear that he was an adult rather than a child, who's very uncontent in that he has to work all day in this stinky old chick suit. So how very degrading for him to have to be looking like that all day. So I'll have those two milling around in the same area as this, collecting tickets for kids to have a go on this ride. But I think that is the build finished. So do tell me if you've got any ideas for improvements or anything that I should do differently, or if you really like this one. I'll be very interested to hear. But I'm really happy with how it's come out, actually. The really bright colours really show it off. And the fact that this guy is so grumpy just makes it absolutely hilarious. Yeah, cool. So, another ride completed. So as always, thanks very much for watching. It is appreciated. Do remember to like, comment and subscribe for more awesome LEGO videos. And if you value this channel, there are many ways in which you can support it. Do check out the links in the description below. And next time on Robin Hood Bricks, I think we know exactly what we'll be doing. We'll be continuing the My Own Steam Train build that we started on Monday. Then Wednesday it should be a haul, and then probably back to the fairground next Friday. I'll see how the mood takes me. So until then, see you!